You are watching Xirtus.
I was not born this way. Everything I do, I have cultivated. I've learned or remembered how to do something I probably shut down when I was a small child. I think that's actually what most of us do. We're born with it all online, or most of it. And through life circumstances, even conditioning of, no, that's not real, don't talk about that, that's not possible. And then we cut it off. It's usually through our peer feedback group, our parents, or then later on our peer group that say, no, no, you're full of shit. And then you just cut it off. And then you have to reactivate that later in your life, hopefully, so that you can then be more fully expressed as a true functioning human being.
Hmm. And so, oh, go ahead. Sorry, Raf.
No, I just want to say one sentence, which is like, in the olden days, isn't that what they would have called bedside manner, which any good doctor should have on a basic level, right? Which got completely thrown out of the window.
It did.
Now they want to have robots operate on you or whatever.
They
Doctors
did.
don't take the time. Even recently, I had an example, a real life example of a friend of mine, and they said, oh, the women's doctor in one country said, oh, yeah, there's something maybe there, or it doesn't look so good. In a few years, probably you will need this or that operation. Then went to a different doctor who was like, oh, I'm not so sure. Then went to a private doctor who was like, yeah, first of all, before we do anything, let's have a conversation. And then, all right, okay, let's take a look. And then there wasn't even really anything there. Question number one, could it be the change of locale, or, less stress and so on? That already changed a lot. And
Right.
the other thing, just taking the time to talk to somebody actually,
Mm-hmm.
to understand their environment. And then all the doctor said in the end, well, now it's a bit bad for you because now you have three opinions. And my friend said, well, I prefer the opinion you gave me. And that was that. No more talk of any medication, any operation, anything at all. And then the doctor just said, yeah, no, I'm kind of sorry, that you had to spend money for this now.
Yeah.
But you really even have to get to the point, even with a regular doctor, that
Mm-hmm.
actually treats you in a proper way and has this empathy and actual
Mm-hmm.
interest, and doesn't just look, oh, I quickly want to get the check from the insurance. I'm just going to write down whatever drugs. Or what I love the most currently is we're going to start with 10 tests, 3 x-rays and MRT, ABC, whatever you
Mm-hmm.
want. And I'm like, guys, don't you realize that it's very possible? I mean, being radiated, for example, in various ways, of course, is totally not going to have any effect on you. And it's going to be great if you do that
Oh, yeah.
every month. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
we've gotten to that point, which is amazing to me. Whereas on the other hand, what would be much more effective, most likely, is have someone with the empathy or the cultivation abilities you have, that can just sense certain things and get a result. Or, just to briefly relate it back to one of our favorite topics of Hollow Earth and what's underground.
Mm-hmm.
I've recently been to a place in close to Neuburg. I talked about this on the previous shows. And what they had there is, this underground cavern, even like an astronomy dome. People say it was the Templars. You have different symbols and so on. That's all a nice story or nice artifacts. But the real thing was that you had a spot there where you could put your arms around. And then the idea was you could literally feel a buzzing within your body wherever you had a low energy state. And that spot still exists. People can go there and they can
Mm-hmm.
verify it for themselves. And of course, the human properly functioning can have a similar diagnostic ability for themselves and also for somebody else, which, I mean, we love arguing about how great is, the modern nanotech and all of that. But I'm usually on the side, well, if we have a natural ability to do these things as well, maybe let's start there first and then consider all the other things.
That's my choice right there. And we do know, I mean, when you're talking about learning where to put a building, according to energy, because you don't want to put it over streams, you don't want to put it over caves. Why do we do that? Because we know that unless the energy is harnessed properly, energy congregates in cavities, right? But if you can harness that properly as the energy is harnessed like a capacitor underground, you could do amazing things with that energy, depending on the type of energy being stored there. This happens in our cells, this happens in our organs, it happens in each body cavity. They all store energy like a capacitor. And if we understand that about the earth, now you're tapping into things. Now ley lines start to make even more difference. You're like, wait a minute. So the earth has meridians like human beings and animal life does overall, or animals too, but it has that type of a a physiology, an energetic physiology? Absolutely it does. So where's the energy being stored? And ancient peoples, they had the understanding of this. They knew where to build structures to harness power or to avoid energy that would have been detrimental to people living over it. They knew this. Those because why? What we're talking about. They were sensitive to energies. Look, everything else out there in nature is sensitive. They feel. Animals know when weather patterns are changing, when earthquakes are coming, all these things, they know it. We did too. We've just dumbed ourselves down for multiple reasons and have lost that ability and then told each other, oh, that never existed.
Right. Well, so
That's
that's what
folklore.
folklore is the thing. So I was thinking about that because, like Russian, Slavic medicine, going back to the babkis and the old traditions talk about like egregores or like collective bioenergetic fields, and even in the Soviet Union, and that was pretty
Yeah.
well accepted. This idea of bioenergetic fields.
You got it.
And people look at like that TV show House MD, where he does his best, at least at first, because I didn't see the whole show, but like you could see he's kind of like the Russian technique of not talking so much to your patient at first when they're super sick because of the worry of the negative energy transfer, which a lot of the time doctors in the Soviet Union and in Russia would avoid having conversations at first and be not even in the same room as their patient and have like their nurses might do some interaction to some extent, but they would study from afar, which, I always thought was kind of weird, but it sounds kind of similar to what you're saying, where you have to be very careful about connecting your energy with someone, especially when you're trying to help them heal, get closer to where you're at, than the other way around, have yourself be corrupted by that negative energy. And I'm wondering also about life force, because you're talking about you do this effort, this exercises to make sure that you are producing and have higher life force. You see children all the time have the ability to fall, scrape their leg, and get back up, and they have so much life force production. But when we get older, some people start to have less and less. Why do you think this is, that life force is like that? That some people are so limited, or falling apart in that way?
It's a great question. So you're born with a savings account, and the Chinese call it Jing. So this savings account is what you've inherited from your parents, your lineage in general, the condition of your parents when you were conceived. And so what you have then is you come to the world with whatever that is. It could be $500. We'll just use money because we can relate. Or you could be $5 million worth of wealth walking into this world. The one with $500, it's like, I don't understand how little Johnny has leukemia at age 7. We fed him right. We didn't live near a nuclear power plant. We did all things right. How could he have this? But if little Johnny came in with very little savings account, then it doesn't take much to throw little Johnny off into dysfunction. Then you have someone like my aunt, who died at 99, who smoked till she was 70 and ate processed garbage till she was 70. Till her doctor goes, one day that might kill you. You serious? Yeah, smoking could kill you. Oh, I'll quit. She just drops it cold turkey. Changed her diet, eats better, not great, but better. Dies at 99 with all of her marbles. If she hadn't had a certain treatment, she would have lived longer. I think that's what took her out. I'll leave it very general. You know what I'm talking about. And so, you have this, but as you move through life, this is how some people get away with murder, right? Like my aunt, they live like idiots, and you're like, how are they still? I don't get it. Croissants and coffee for breakfast every day, and then a salad with some turkey on it at lunch, and then by evening, they're drinking until midnight, and they're 80. Like, how are you doing that? Jing, big savings account. The next person, I have autoimmune dysfunction. I've got this, and this. I've tried everything in the world. I just can't seem to get on top of it. And often I'll feel back in and go, you didn't have much of a savings account. It's a shitty roll of dice, but it is what it is. And that does determine a lot of what you can get away with in this life. It really does. I want to address the whole doctors not being close, though, to the clients because they don't want to train. All that tells me is that they rightfully somehow knew, whether through just teaching of their mentors or their own experience, I don't have the internal environment necessary to not take on we'll use, I think it's homeopathic terminology, miasms, the patterns from the dysfunctional patterns from the client. I don't have what it takes to ward that off. And I've seen a mentor get sick because they didn't follow the rules and whatever. And so then the fear is set in. Now you have the fear of it happening. That's sitting in there. So now they're really afraid to get close. But what I'm saying is, and I do have grand respect for the Russians, their willingness to research the fringes of medicine and science and create amazing tools and devices. They're freaking amazing at that kind of stuff. So props to the Russians. But if you're afraid of working with a client, which many energy workers are, yes, heavy quotations, because if you're like, look, I'm going to slip on my body condom here to protect myself energetically from all the things that are wrong with you so I don't get sick. You're not an energy worker. You're farting around. You're in kindergarten acting like you've got some kind of mastery, and you don't. Maybe no fault of your own. Maybe you just never were taught how to do it. And that's usually the case. They mean well, but the teaching wasn't there. And you're right. I think it was Rafa you talked about in China, talking about the cultivation of life force. Yes, a very Far Eastern type of a concept taught through all those different areas. It is crucial. We have lost the ability. I'll mention the other piece, though, that goes with that. Well, what is spirituality and energy cultivation then, Keith? Are those separate? They're not. And those cultures would tell you it's this. I believe there's what I call gates inside of a person. And if the more gates you can open up inside the person energetically, the more infinite energy that is this place moves through you as an emanation of it. You're more in alignment of the one that is inexhaustible. But the more gates that are closed off, the less that flow is happening. This is also, I think, why you can have a married couple. They've been together for 65 years, and he passed last month, and she died 2 months later, and there was nothing wrong with her. And what did you hear from her kids? Well, mom missed dad so much, she just said she couldn't live without him, and she didn't. They shut the gates down on a deep level, and they exit. The silver cord is broken, and they're headed home. There's other people who do the opposite. I hate this life. I can't wait to get out of here. I can't stand it. I just don't want to live anymore. And they just keep living because something deeper underneath the conscious mind is going, you don't know what you're talking about. Stop thinking these stupid thoughts. The deeper drive of your life is much grander than your myopic vision. We're not letting you out of here. The gates are staying open, and they can't will themselves to leave. So I think that's a bigger part of it as well.
All right, so the two more things I wanted to say, and then maybe we're just gonna do this as an exercise. Everyone in chat, kindly check out the links below, always, but this time especially, because what we're gonna do, we're gonna talk for a few more minutes, and then we're gonna have some addendum where we're only gonna stream on X and Rumble and Twitch. There's all the links below. I'll let you know once again before we do that. But meanwhile, so one thing I picked up recently online, I'm not sure if it's correct, but supposedly about 60% or 2/3 of bankruptcies, personal bankruptcies, individual bankruptcies in the US are due to what? You can both take a guess. Exactly. And I'm like, oh my God, wow. But this is just an aside. And the other thing, please kindly, briefly, if you'd like to recount
And I think
story.
divorce is the other third. Sorry.
Did you say divorce? Yes, it is, Andreas. Yeah.
Please kindly recount the story you mentioned about the doctor, and the video that you made and whatever happened there, because oftentimes, of course, especially now that the US, I'm about to say there's a reason why there's military bases all over the place. So I count myself. I'm not a citizen technically, but it's all there's
but the American spirit is strong with this one.
Whatever that means, I'll take it as a positive.
Good.
But anyway, so especially since the new government is in now, people, which is always dangerous, to glaze the ones who are at the top. I think that's something that should never be done or should be particularly careful. But anyways, aside from the warp speed we've experienced, there has all been this information flow, alternative doctors. One thing we brought up on our interview with Dr. Shiva Ayyadurai is the wellness company, which seems like a super controlled opposition, basically selling you overpriced generica with these big figurehead doctors, but they don't really get to the core of the issue. They still have you afraid. We don't exactly know what they're funding in the back, maybe intelligence related, whatever else. You have the whole 5D, 7D, 9D chess. Anyways, the question is, what was Trump in this case during his first
Mhm.
administration potentially informed about, and what may he have acted or not acted upon. We can only speculate as to why, but it's interesting because you have a real life story of one thing that he got informed on and most likely didn't act upon, and of course we want to know about that.
Yeah. And you want me to talk about it when we switch over?
Yeah, actually we can switch over just right about now. Let's
Okay.
see what
Now,
I'm
this is
gonna
going
do.
to my Facebook feed, just to let you guys know.
Which
All
might
right.
be okay. I don't even know where the rules are for which platforms. I'm just saying, YouTubers, you know where to find us. Go to the X and go to the
Yeah.
Rumble. It's been great. Bye, YouTube.